Good afternoon. Today is the 13th day of November 2016, and our continuing series, Interviews with Orwellians. I'm very happy to have an old friend with us, Hemant, and we'd like to hear so many things from you. Shali tells me that you have a wealth of knowledge and experience. So, first question we always ask is, how did you hear of Sri Aurobindo and Mother, and then how did you hear of Auroville?
First time I heard of Sri Aurobindo was not actually from anybody else, but it was in our college library. There was the collected works of Sri Aurobindo, and that was huge volume occupying a shelf space.
Must have been the 1972 edition of 32 volumes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where I knew that there is a great personality who has written such a voluminous knowledge in these books, and I was not aware of till I saw that volume. But I didn't dare at that time to open the books and read through, because my area of interest at that moment was something else. So that's where I remember that shelf of.
Do you remember the year?
That was
roughly
85, I guess.
85.
Yeah, that was my first year in college. And after that, it just vanished. Of course, we have read about Sri Aurobindo in textbooks, and that's very textbook knowledge, but not at the depth of what he represents. The second time was more intimate, and that was through a friend of mine who visited Auroville, and this was in 1990. And he came back, and he showed me the photographs of Auroville, and told me about Mother and Sri Aurobindo. That was the first time somebody was telling me about it. And that's where the seeds of my journey began in many ways.
So you graduated college?
Yes.
And then?
Then I was in process of getting started. I further educated myself after my college in computers.
In computers?
Yeah, and I wanted to start my working life in information technology. That was the kind of sunrise work everybody was looking for.
Sure.
At that moment. And I did plunge into that for my first years, and I didn't like it. And very soon it was clear to me that this is not the area of my interest, or I would like to go further. But I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and once this part of the life didn't work out for me, then I moved to more hands-on hardware approach of life, to kind of plunge into something where I could touch and feel things.
What was your degree?
Well, my degree was in very general subjects. It's in economics and languages, and so it's a mix of things.
So at this point, you're looking for something else?
I was actually not looking for something else. Yeah, no, there was no search in me looking for something else. What did I was looking for something else when I was in school. And that was to kind of break through the system which was so oppressing of education. And I felt very oppressed in a school system. And that's the time when I used to dream of a place, or of my kind of fantasy or imagination of that time. And when my friend came back, and he said, "This is what you were dreaming of."
Where did you go to college?
In Delhi.
In Delhi.
Yeah.
So he said this to you in
1990.
1999.
1990.
90. Okay.
Yeah, and this is where was your what you used to talk in your fantasies. This is happening there. So that was quite interesting. But I heard that it didn't kind of stirred me that I have to go immediately there and see that. But it stayed with me for that moment or another year or so. Because the next year I came.
Oh,
And that too also by chance, not by plan.
and tell us about that.
Yeah.
People are so interested in hearing these things because somehow it elevates them in their aspiration, in their consciousness. And almost, I would say not almost, but always something of Mother comes through.
Yeah.
It's subtle and it's so beautiful. So
Yes.
we want to hear everything.
Yeah, well, this is, I think, it's a play, and it's this Leela which is happening,
Yes.
and in that play somehow there are these stories, and everybody has a story. So
Yes.
I have a story too,
Yes.
and how I came was when I was starting my entrepreneurial career. I was encouraged by one of my cousins who was ready to invest in my energies and provide me the space and knowledge and the necessary investments to go on that path. So he said, you choose what you want to do, and then we go there. Before he said, you choose, you have to do a tour of the country.
Oh.
And not tour of the country to know the country, as a good businessman to know where you can save taxes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he said, map the whole country, and wherever there are governments who are giving tax reliefs, spot them and visit them, so that in the end we will have a choice. And I spotted, and in all the spots, of course, Pondicherry was one of them, but there was Goa also. So when there was Goa, I said, why are we looking? Here we are. So why do we have to go to anywhere else? Let's go to Goa straight. He said, no, you go and let Goa be your last stop, and then we'll figure it out after. I said, okay. So I started my journey from Odisha down to Andhra Pradesh, then to Tamil Nadu, and then came to Pondicherry. So from Chennai, I took the last bus in the middle of the night. That time there was no ECR, there was this long route. And very early morning, around 4:30, 5 o'clock, I reached Pondicherry. And I didn't know where I'm going and what I'm going. So 2 words I knew. Shri Aurobindo Ashram and Auroville. And I told the auto rickshaw, take me to Shri Aurobindo Ashram, Auroville. So he was a little confused. So he said, Ashram or Auroville? I said, Shri Aurobindo Ashram, Auroville. So he brought me to the Samadhi first. And as I sort of got down, my mind was still focused to get a guest house. But as I got down, there were people cleaning the street. It was kind of a magical environment.
Yeah.
And then I slowly went inside, and I was this serenity which was so kind of very difficult to describe in words, but it was this kind of this atmosphere where you walk in. Still the mind was not hit. Mind was still searching for the guest house. So first question I asked, is there a guest house here? I said, no, this is Samadhi. And then very politely somebody said, go out and this street there is a guest house. And then I went and knocked at the door. no guest house. Nobody opened the door. Then second one, the third one, and fourth one. Then the auto rickshaw said hotels, lodges. There were very few at that time. So we searched every lodge, every hotel, every guest house in Pondicherry. Everything was full. So we were very surprised. It was summer, and summer is off season everywhere in the country.
Yeah.
So what's the reason? Well, there is exam of JIPMER medical school. So all the children who are kids who are appearing for the admission test have taken over, their parents and kids have taken over the guest houses. They said, okay, there's a place near the beach. I said, oh wow, beach, let's go to the beach. So we went to the beach, and then he dropped me in one of the shacks which is now ECR, halfway to Oroville, and I got into the guest house and was there. And later the guest house manager came and said, where is Oroville? He said, there is here. Then I realized these are two different places. So then he helped me to hire a scooter.
Oh.
And I gave me a map, which was useless. Later on I realized to have even a map and go to Oroville was something was there, but with the scooter I went and I got lost, completely lost even with the map. After hour and a half or maybe 2 hours, I don't know how much time went, I landed up in Matrimandir.
Oh.
And Matrimandir was still a construction site. There were no petals. One could take the scooter up to the banyan tree, and that's first time I realized that there's something like this. And then I was talking to very few people working on the site, and I got talking to them, and then I said, "Is there a guest house?" Also, on that day, my search was a guest house, nothing else, no Shiva Bindu and no mother. And they said, yes, there is a guest house. And I went to Center Guest House. Silvano that time was there, who was the caretaker at that time of Center Guest House. And he said, yes, the room is available. And I shifted by middle of the day, I was in Oroville. So that's how my journey began, that I reached Shiva Bindu Ashram in morning, and by midday I was in Oroville. And then things started happening in succession, which some higher plan was executing.
For example, what do you recall?
Well, I recall those days as if it has happened yesterday. So I have every detail of that etched in my memory and heart. The guest house was absolutely free, available, and there was only one gentleman from Calcutta who was staying there. And in those days in Oroville, since there were not many things happening or not many buildings, Center Guest House used to become an evening hub. So people would come, or classes are happening, or people would come to have their lunch, dinner, or just get together there. So during the day it was quite quiet, and in the evening this little hobnob started happening. And I started sitting with people from Oroville and started talking, listening to stories, and that kind of was my interests. Buds were kind of opening up in that. Wow, and that's something. And I knew that this friend of mine who had visited and said that this is your fantasy land. And then I was asking questions about education and all that, and indeed it was like that. I mean, I could not believe that it was such a place could exist in reality. So the next day I took my best clothes, had to go for a business search. That's what my original search was, to go to the Pondicherry government, to the industrial zones of Pondicherry, and do my research on what's happening in Pondicherry on that front. So I took my little scooter and dressed up well and was in a great hurry to reach Pondicherry. And as I was riding the scooter, just in front of Certitude, I didn't see the hump. And I flew off.
Head over.
Yeah, I was on one side and the scooter was on the other one. Fortunately, or the saving hand was there somewhere, that I was not badly hurt. I was shocked but not hurt. And the scooter was working. So everything, although it seemed very severe, but it didn't affect too much, other than disorienting, disbalancing me. And my best clothes were gone. So, and that was somewhere a sign that I had to take a U-turn.
Oh,
So I went back to the guest house.
so you actually got up?
I got somebody picked me up, gave me water. There was some bleeding in from my toe and cleaned me up, and then I took the scooter and rode back the scooter back to the guest house. So that was where I say that I came to Auroville by an accident. And that was my big U-turn in my life. Yeah, one of the biggest U-turns. So there is, I went to the guest house and Silvano, he said, the best thing is to sleep, to get the shock over. I give you a little tranquilizer and you sleep. And that's what I did. I just slept through. And then evening again, when I woke up, same people around, and my interest in questions were growing and growing, and everybody was very patient to answer them. And by third day, when my cousin joined me, I was slowly losing my interest in figuring out how
The tax savings.
savings, not yet fully, but it was already a start of it and this happened very quickly. It's within about 48 hours. From the moment I came to the doors of Sri Aurobindo Ashram, where my mind was more guest house, till I got the shock, where my mind was more wow, what's happening here, was a very quick turn. And of course we did our trip back till Goa, and originally we had planned 3 days in Goa, but after 1 day we were off from there. So by the time this trip completed, there was a kind of a meltdown which had started happening. And my thought, this trip was so powerful that it would not leave me. I was losing interest. I stopped going to office. I stopped researching. I stopped all the rest of the things, and I said, and after a few weeks, I said I have to go back. So when I first came, it was June, and then after a couple of months, I decided that I'll come a little longer to explore more Auroville for about a month. And in August the same year, I came for a month, and that's where I dived deep into the experience of Auroville. And by the end of that 1 month, I was clear that my entrepreneurial life is over. Uh, so it was a matter of kind of announcing back home the shocking news,
Yes, yes.
and a matter of really figuring out how to come here, and when that uh, but by end of the month I was very clear that I'm coming back. I didn't know how long I will stay here, but I said I would give myself a year or two to really experience Oroville. And then by November I shifted to Oroville from Delhi that year, 91.
So very quick.
Yeah, it's today is 13th. I think it's exactly 25 years.
25 years.
It's exact to the date today.
To the day today. Well, this is special. Very special. So let's begin about your work in Oroville, your life in Oroville.
Yeah, this also was a kind of a red carpet for me in that sense. The second time when I came in August 91, I was sitting in under the banyan tree of Center Guest House, and there was a light hanging over there, and the two young students, Dutch volunteers, who were also used to come to eat over there. And one day, as usual in those years and till today, there are long power cuts or frequent power cuts. So there was a power cut and this light was still on. And it was a little different looking light than normal because it was a CFL, and in those years CFL was something new. So I asked this, I said, what is this light? I said, oh yeah, this is a solar light. Solar light, it sounded a bit like science fiction in those years. So it was imported. I said, no, it's made in Oroville. He said, what? He said, yes, we work in that unit. And it's called Altex. He said, wow, Altex, who's running it? And I said, yeah, this Matthias who runs it. I said, okay, I would like to see and meet him.
Ashram Matthias?
No,
different
it was
Matthias.
an Oroville Matthias.
Okay, good.
So a day or two later, I arrived over there just for curiosity of what's happening. And this was a small little workshop, downstairs like a garage, and upstairs was a peaked roof and a little staircase going up. And I was quite taken aback. Outside, electrical mopeds and all a kind of a paradise for any geek. And I walk up over there, and there's a kit hut. One side, a colonial furniture with the most sophisticated sound mixing system, because Matthias is a sound engineer. And the other side, office with 2 computers, and a hammock and few chairs. And for me, this was another fantasy. I was coming from an environment, computers were guarded like with all the cushions and air conditioning. Here, under a kit hut, hammock, and these computers. Before I could ask anything, I said, Matthias, do you need anybody to work over here? He said, who are you? I said, well, I can help you in marketing. He said, how do you know I need somebody in marketing? I said, I don't know. I'm just here. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I can't help you, but maybe I can help you in your administration and selling things. And I don't know what you make. So he said, yes, I need somebody, but I don't have time now. Let's meet in the evening. And we fixed an appointment, and he said, this is something which I've been asking, and I'm asking that somebody should come, and you have walked in. I have to go to Germany for next 2 months in the summer, and I need somebody to take care of this place. Are you ready to take care? this is something which I could not believe that this was happening, and somebody is ready to give me a whole workshop with employees, and I am 24 at that moment. So there was so much of trust and so much of uh, this feeling of that, yes, so much synchronicity is happening, that I was kind of quite taken aback. And a similar thing happened with the house, and not only today, but in those times also, living in Oroville was tough, difficult housing issues and all that. And I was a newcomer with no money and coming very young. So there was in Center Guest House, one day I see two North Indian husband wife and eating their lunch, and then suddenly we get talking, and I said, yes, I have to shift here, I'm planning to come here, but I don't know where to live house. When are you coming? I said, in November. Oh yeah, November is a monsoon season and we go out. You can take our house for 2 months. And that was Janal Tiwari and Kamla Tiwari.
Oh my goodness.
I said, what this place is? I could not figure out that I was coming from a system where the first reaction to anybody is that you don't trust anyone. Here it was somebody was giving me the house, somebody was giving me their workplace.
And no money.
And no money asked. On top of it, they're saying, okay, we will leave you the money for caretaking and all. So it was something which was very unusual happening on those fronts, and that sort of brought me in close contact with how what mother talked about, the future of economy or the future of the society is on trust and sharing. Those fundamental principles I was experiencing, and I had not read anything before. So for me, Oroville has been more, or Mother and Sri Aurobindo have been more, the knowledge has been at the level of experience. And that has been the most wonderful book which has unfolded in my years over here.
So now what did you begin? What work did you begin?
Yeah, so I started helping Matthias. He was doing this little electronics for solar electronics, which were that time in the outlying communities in Oroville. It was mainly solar energy. Even the later house which I shifted, for about 7 years we did not have electricity. We had a small solar panel and a little battery, and this electronics made in that little fantasy home. And so he was making that, and he was probably one of the very few 3 or 4 or 5 such people in the country who was doing such things. And he was repairing electrical mopeds, and he used to make inverters and UPSs for the computer, the growing information technology industry in India. And I knew information technology industry because I worked about a year. So I said that animal I know, so I can help getting into it, selling UPSs and inverters and all these things to the information technology world. So I started helping him in selling this stuff. In that process of time, learned what solar energy is, and it was quite exciting to be working in something which is very futuristic and much before its time.
Yes.
At that time, it was like science fiction. So that really provided me this kind of an fundamental base of being in Oroville, and I got very busy actually in that. It was completely immersed into it, and traveling all over South India to sell these systems or do installations within Oroville, and then slowly things started growing, and I started diving more into solar because that was my interest. And then at one point I was doing only solar energy, and from there I transitioned from Altex 3 years later to CSR, the Center for Scientific Research, for doing solar pumping projects. So that's where my solar journey also started.
Who were you working with in CSO?
Well, the CSR was just a kind of an administrative umbrella. It was a lot of people in Auroville who I started working with, and that was the best way to come to know Auroville also. So it was Tensi, Matthias, then Tuan, Guy, Ashok, General Ashok Chatterjee, Michael Tate. So this was a kind of an start of our solar projects at a much larger level, and that's where my contact with Matri Mandir also got into a place. Matri Mandir was just, the crystal was installed the year I came, or the month I came. So it was in August 1991 the crystal was installed. And it was a very powerful experience to be inside the room when I went first time. And subsequently, I developed a kind of a deep sense of connection with Matri Mandir as a project to be manifested. And all of us, the names which I spoke about, at one point we thought that when Mother said Matri Mandir during the day will be illuminated by a ray of light, we said, why not in the night also? And the only way to do that was to use the electricity from the sun and power the artificial light with solar energy. And that became an inspiration that we have to do a solar plant for Matri Mandir. And that time it was far away, because it was that time very expensive and it was a far off dream. But then I was doing the solar pumping projects, and many miracles happened in that phase of manifesting that project within Auroville, which was one of the biggest projects in the country at that moment. And it became clear that if there is any surplus of money which is available, we will use that to do a solar power plant for Matri Mandir. So it became a mission that we have to achieve the solar plant in Matri Mandir. So all the works got kind of fueled by this inspiration. And then finally in 1997, we did the plant in Matri Mandir. That time again it was one of the biggest plants in the country. Now that size plants people are doing for their homes. So that's where the journey started becoming deeper in terms of purpose of doing things.
And what did you do after that?
Well, I continued for many years. We gained experience within Auroville to do these things. And we were very few people in the country who could manage this also, because it was completely a growing area of specialization and nobody knew where to go, what to do and all that. So here Auroville, as for any other thing, provided itself as a laboratory to test all that. We failed a lot, but we learned a lot, and then we could perfect something after many iterations. And when we started doing these projects within Auroville, the people whom we were working with, whether it was the government in India, whether it was the people who were supplying things to us, the companies, they realized that these people do a job with some amount of attention to detail and concentration, and they have certain values to behind what they are doing. So they felt, they kept us encouraging that go out and spread it, because we need it in other parts of the country. So post 97, when the Matripandi plant was done, it was like a purpose realized. And then it was what next? And it took almost a year to kind of figure out that what next. Because there was, we do this, but what for? No, that was my question. And then it happened as, let's continue doing what we are doing rather than stopping to do, and see what comes. And then I resumed my solar pumping work again.
Let's take up what's next in the next segment. So we'll break here and have part 2 with Hemant in a few minutes.